Okay, so I think I might have hit things backwards, so I might already be started on Facebook. I'm going live on YouTube. Flip that. I already went live on YouTube, and now I'm going live on Facebook in just a minute. And I never trust when it says that it's live, so I go ahead and start talking now, and now it says I'm live. I don't know when it actually started. I've been going for 20 seconds on YouTube already, so sorry about that if you're just getting or developing a Bible lesson together. So if you hadn't heard of anything coming up to this point, and you're just now getting into this, you haven't missed anything. We're starting to develop a Bible lesson together. I'm recording this also on YouTube so that when it's time, let's see, maintain smooth as such view. Okay. Sorry, I have a warning that just came up about my frame rate. So I apologize if that is an issue. We're going to press on. This will be recorded in YouTube as well. And so if you miss it, or if you don't have Facebook, if you don't have Facebook, you're not seeing those on Facebook. But anyway, you can get it there. And the idea is over this month, we will develop a Bible lesson together. What lesson? We're just about to figure that out. What kind? We'll talk about it today. This could be a sermon. It could be a Bible class, a personal study. The idea is to help anybody who wants to be able to make this accessible, something that they can work on. So that's the idea of what we're getting at, and what I wanted to do, and why I'm distracted at the moment is I was trying to get back to my page. But since the way I have all my screens minimized, it's an easier said than done thing, so that I could look at the winner of the poll. I wanted to give it till the last second. The poll is closed, and the winner is at 30%. Angels in Modern Times. And so that is what we're looking at in developing a Bible lesson together. I have to be careful. Evidently touching my desk is going to make that all shake. And here is our plan. We're going to develop this lesson from scratch together. I've had a couple of people send me ideas of the lessons that they saw, and I intentionally didn't look at those a whole lot because I didn't want them to shape how I might pursue a lesson and how we might do this together. I don't know if you've ever had an idea and had somebody else give an idea and it changes your idea. That's not bad, but to observe something is to change it, right? What I wanted to do is have this time together where I might tell you my weird way of addressing these things. You can take things that work for you. I'd like to see what it is that you do, and I might steal some of those. We can look at that together. And if you've never developed a lesson or had your personal Bible study go like you would like it to do something, perhaps something in this will be helpful. Also, there will be some practical tips that might help you in other kinds of research or study that you're doing as we look at it. And so what I wanted to quickly do today is overview these topics that didn't get chosen and talk about some things about them, and it'll give us some perspective to look at this topic that got chosen, angels in modern times. And so the other topics were exhortation, looking back and looking forward, how to study with someone when you've never been to preaching school, rebuke, before Ruth there was Naomi, angels in modern times, Acts 3:19 through 21, and how to get started evangelizing when you feel no confidence at all. Those were the other topics. And something I observed to my wife as I was getting these suggestions in, these were suggestions from comments or ideas that I saw that you had in comments. You might say, I didn't mean for my topic to be on there. Well, I took it because you said it, and I put it on there for an option for someone to pick. And I told my wife most of these topics are what I would consider, what I would consider sermon titles. And what's funny is I've been preaching for about 20 years, and sermon titles are usually the last thing I pick. Sometimes I'll have a sermon, which means I'll have a sermon without a title, and I'll look over the title then, and I'll pick it. Now that might typically be something obvious. Maybe I'm doing a lesson on a word study of exhortation. That would be a good way to do that study, exhortation. I'm going to take this word, find it, what it means, and I'm going to narrow it down. That's what we'll talk about when we're talking about word study sometime. And I'll say I'm talking about this aspect, or Old or New Testament. Do I see a difference there, a distinction that Not that exhortation wasn't necessary, now it is, but do I see different ways to talk about it? Love would be one of those. It has a spectrum of meaning that you might examine. And so exhortation might end up being my title, but my title might be building each other up. Instead of the word that I do the study of. And you might say, well, why would that be? Well, maybe when I look at it, that's more the direction that I feel like it goes, and it helps communicate that idea. Looking back and looking forward would be something I'd consider as a title, and I would say whenever you come up with an idea of something like that, there's nothing wrong with saying this is something that should be addressed. I believe, maybe you came up with that because you said, I believe people have trouble with guilt, and it shackles them, and they can't move forward. And I believe you'd be accurate with that guess. And so when you think of that and you say, I'd like to address that, there's nothing wrong with it. Here's the word of caution. When you think of something that need addressed, and you make your title or your topic first, you make your goal first, be very careful you don't just cherry pick scripture to make it look like you fit that goal. This would be a fine thing for someone to learn. I need to learn about looking back, what's healthy, what's good about that, what's not. I need to learn how to look forward, what's a good way to do that. But it would be easy to be cherry picking the scriptures that would establish what you're wanting to, rather than perhaps what the scriptures say about it. And so when I come up with something like that, I say this would be good to address. What I might do to protect against that is I might say, is there a passage, a section of scripture that is dealing with this? And when I saw this, I shared with the person who shared it that it makes me think of Philippians 3 when Paul talks about how he doesn't look back, but pressing forward to reach the goal, the upward call of God. That seems to be a good one for that. And then what I've ended up doing is I exegete. I just pull out of those verses what's there. I try to get across as plainly as possible what Paul's teaching, and I might title it Looking Back and Looking Forward. And the application would be, regardless of what our past is, have we put it behind us? Have we repented? If we have, we don't keep looking back. We're pressing on toward the goal, grasping that for which Jesus has taken hold of us. So that would apply to a lot of these that are sort of titles first. Not wrong in and of itself, not the way I usually write things, and so I can learn from you. Maybe I could start looking a little more and saying, here's a thing, a title that people need to deal with or interested in or whatever. But I guess I do that when I say, what would be a good scripture to handle this? So we were doing the same thing, just coming at it from different standpoints. How to study with someone when you've never been to preaching school seems very closely related to how to get started evangelizing when you feel no confidence at all. Not that preaching school should make someone overly confident, and not that someone can't be confident without preaching school. Those would all be things that are covered in there. What I would do to cover these lessons if I were doing them is I would say, well, let's define perhaps what studying with someone is. And I believe I would define that as, well, you're evangelizing or you're studying the scriptures with someone. What does that mean? We might define what evangelizing is to see how we might narrow that down in addressing it. And in short, I believe what we'd find as we study that out is we would say, well, evangelizing is teaching the gospel. Who should teach the gospel? Jesus' disciples, and they should go and make more disciples. And our ability and confidence aren't first on the list of the power there. What we see in Scripture is we never see God say, be good enough to teach people well. We see him walk worthy of the gospel in which we're called, but he never says convert anyone. He says teach, and the word converts. So that's where I believe we'd end up in that if we looked at it. Rebuke, like exhortation, would be a great word study, or what you might find if you don't just do a topical word study, you might find a passage that you're focusing on the rebuke in it. And you can look at the audience. You can look at who the subject is or why for that rebuke. You can look at the desired outcome, if that happens, and how it was attained, something like that, if you take verses to do it. You might look at 1 Corinthians 1 to 1 Corinthians 2. You'd be doing a big survey type, but you'd be focusing on rebuke and desired outcome. would be something that you could do. Before Ruth, there was Naomi. A study on the book of Naomi. It's a great Bible class. This you could focus on the aspect of influence, and there we would be careful because there are certain things we'd be taking for granted or assuming. However, we're looking at what kind of influence was Naomi on Ruth. And she did have her raw moments that are exposed in Ruth, which are a real good thing to study. But nonetheless, Ruth came with her. And so there's some interesting things to look at in there. With any cultural studies, it's important to understand the place of studying history and culture, extra-biblical history and culture. Because the Bible is history and culture. It's recording it too. And so we should study that as supplementary to, not contrary to, because you're going to find things in culture and history that we might have a difficult time explaining in the Bible, or the Bible doesn't talk about. It doesn't want to cover all of history and all culture, or we might accidentally, if we're not careful, because this is easy for me to do, you find something very interesting, and you say, well, look at this thing. This was happening. What's it have to do with anything? Well, we had an exercise of knowledge. We learned something, and sometimes digging through those things, you do find nuggets that have their application and parallel to Bible things. But I always love the Book of Ruth. A great one to look into. Acts 3:19 through 21. Some tremendous phrases and difficult topics in there. That would be a good exegetical study. You could take any of the phrases in there and really look at them. We're looking at the refreshing, the coming of Jesus. When's that talking about? How's it mean? Who did it apply to, and in what way? Would be some things to consider there in Acts 3:19 through 21. So just wanted to give a brief overview of those other ones with some of the potential ways we might have approached those. And now we're looking at our topic, angels in modern times. So if you've hopped on with us, great to have you with us. Hey AJ, hey June, hey Miss Debbie. Sorry, I was looking at another screen and now I see my comments. I'm also live over on YouTube. I hope that I look okay. Well, as okay as I can look. I'm not glitching too much from the camera. We're set up here to study. I've got another camera today. Hello, I'm going to call this my book camera because I can move it. I can go, okay. But I'll try not to make you motion sick. And then when we get into some books, I can turn this around and we can look at them together. And I've got eSword over here, and we can examine some things there together. Oh, I don't want to drag eSword away. We can examine some things over there together whenever we come to it. And I've got the laptop camera right here. So I hope I had sound through all of those. I think I set it up that way. And if you hear a problem, if you could let me know, that would be great. So now on to our topic, angels in modern times. And so what I'll do, well, hold on. This is me, okay? I left one of my main things just out of reach, but I got it. Okay. So what I will do when I'm working on a lesson is I will get a new page in my notebook, handy dandy notebook, and I will, hope that's not copyrighted or anything, new page in my notebook. There we go. And what I like to do, here I did this and I didn't grab a pen. Let me grab a pen. Here. So some things to have handy whenever you're making a Bible lesson. There's a notebook and a pen. And my goal in my lifetime is to lose enough pens that anytime I put my hand down to grab one, there it is. And so I haven't reached that yet. But here we go. I've got a pen. I've got a notebook. For this notebook, I'm on page 42. So I'm going to write 42 in the bottom right-hand corner. And in the back, I'm going to write 42 and write angels in modern times. Now, I haven't decided what kind of lesson this is yet. And be sure when you're doing this, especially before you make a PowerPoint, you are writing about angels and not angles. I believe in both, and we don't always see both of them. They have a lot of similarities, but angels and angles are different. Angels and modern times is our topic. And I started this several years ago, and what it makes a nice, well, that's backwards. We'll go to book camera here. It makes a nice index whenever I'm wanting to find what it is to do, and where I've written about this. And I have a little, I don't know, pictograph code system that when it's a sermon, I'll put a box square around it. I have Bible classes that are marked differently, and so at a glance I can find where those things are, and I can go back and find some of my core notes for those. And so that's one thing that I like to do. I have reasons that I prefer to write things out, because I believe it uses different parts of my brain and helps me anyway. You might prefer to type things. It is certainly not because of my penmanship or my spelling. I won't try to show any of that off as we're looking at it, but we're looking at angels in modern times. Now, I'll give some extremes of how I would say not to approach this to start with. I wouldn't go searching on Netflix for documentaries about angels and about people's experiences with them. Well, why is that? They might provide for you some interesting illustrations, but as far as we're looking at a metric of objectivity, people's experiences that they think they've had with angels are not objective, and we don't know why they might have had the experience that they had without perhaps some kind of chemical test results or something. So when we're looking at a scale of a most subjective to least subjective, usually how I like to start my lessons is with the most subjective tool that we can have, and that is the Bible. And someone might say, well, the most subjective tool you could have is a Hebrew Old Testament and a Greek New Testament. And if you can fluently read those languages, yes, and you have used some other tools that have their degrees of subjectivity to them to learn that. That doesn't mean, though, however, that the Bible is not here our most objective tool. So I want to start here any way that I can. And what I wanted to do in these studies is I wanted to try to make this, like I said, accessible to anybody who's working on it. And that's also why I brought up eSword. If you have an internet connection, you can get this free. You can get this free thing. I'm not paid by them or anything. eSword, e-sword.net. eSword. That's e-sword.net.